I'll break your leg in half, my brother-in-law snarled, slamming a pair of heavy fight gloves onto the kitchen table so hard the wood groaned. I swear to God, I'll put you in a wheelchair, and your kid gets to watch. My 8-year-old daughter shrank behind my chair, tears streaming down her pale cheeks as he towered over us, veins bulging in his neck, convinced he was terrifying a soft, defenseless single mother. He thought he was the ultimate predator in that room, using pure intimidation to bully us out of our home. What he didn't realize was that I didn't even flinch. Behind my quiet smile was a decorated Special Forces veteran who had survived combat zones across the globe. He had no clue he was backing a lethal operative into a corner, and the trap he was setting was about to snap shut directly on him. My name is Sarah Whitfield. I'm 34 years old, and if you saw me in the grocery store aisle or waiting in the school pickup line, you wouldn't look twice. You'd just see a quiet, soft-spoken suburban mother trying to raise her 8-year-old daughter in peace. But looks can be dangerously deceiving. Before I became a full-time mom, I spent nearly a decade operating in elite Special Forces military units. I was trained to remain completely calm in high-stakes combat zones, read human behavior under extreme pressure, and eliminate threats before they ever had a chance to strike. When I left that life, I put away my gear, locked my past in a vault, and chose a life of quiet stability for my daughter, Maya. Then came Marcus. Marcus was my late husband's brother, a loud, arrogant gym owner who thought his size and toxic temper made him king of the world. For months, he had been trying to bully me into handing over the title to our family home, assuming a grieving widow was an easy target. But on this specific Tuesday afternoon, Marcus decided to cross a line he could never uncross. He burst into my kitchen, slamming his heavy fight gloves onto the table, his face flushed with unearned rage as he unleashed a wave of violent threats right in front of Maya. He genuinely believed he was terrifying a helpless woman. He thought his booming voice and aggressive posturing were winning him the room. He had no idea that while he was screaming, I was clinically assessing his body language, calculating his center of gravity, and mapping out 3 different ways to neutralize him in under 2 seconds. He thought he was the predator. He had no clue he'd just stepped directly into a trap. To a man like Marcus, physical size was the only metric of power that mattered. Standing 6'2" and topping 230 pounds, he was accustomed to leaning his weight into every room, using crude intimidation to force people into submission. He looked at my 5'6" frame, my soft sweaters, and my gentle tone with my daughter, and he calculated absolute weakness. He didn't know about the years I spent in severe physical and psychological conditioning. He didn't know about the counter-terrorism deployments, the Joint Task Force operations, or the specialized hand-to-hand combat systems designed for high-risk urban environments. In my world, muscle was useless without discipline, and shouting was just a sign of panic. I had faced armed insurgents in pitch-black compounds where a single misstep meant a body bag. A gym bully posturing over a kitchen table wasn't intimidating, it was predictable. I kept my past hidden for a reason. When my husband passed away, my only goal was to give Maya a normal, peaceful childhood. She didn't need to know the violence her mother had witnessed, nor did I want my extended family treating me like a weapon. I chose to blend into the background, letting Marcus assume whatever he wanted about my character. That assumption was his fatal mistake. As he leaned over the table, his breath hot and ragged, he pulled out a stack of forged legal notices and slapped them down next to his gloves. "You sign this home over to me by Friday," he snarled, his voice dropping into a raspy growl, "or I will make your life a living hell." Marcus took a heavy step forward, closing the remaining distance between us. The wooden chair legs scraped loudly against the linoleum floor as his shadow completely blocked out the afternoon light streaming through the window. He leaned down, placing both palms flat on the table, bringing his face inches from mine. "I'm done playing nice, Sarah. He spat, his eyes wide and wild. "If you don't sign these papers, I won't just take this house. I'll break your leg in half. I swear to God, I'll put you in a wheelchair and your kid gets to watch." Behind me, Maya let out a sharp, ragged gasp. I felt her tiny hands wrap tightly around the back of my cardigan, her body trembling against mine. The sound of her crying broke through the room, heavy with sheer terror. In that exact second, Marcus crossed the one boundary he could never return from. Threatening me was a mistake. Threatening me in front of my child was a death sentence to his ambition. My heart rate didn't spike. My pulse stayed cold and steady at 60 beats per minute. In my mind, time slowed to a crawl, a familiar sensation from my years in combat. I clinically mapped out my immediate options. Option 1, a palm heel strike to his chin, collapsing his airway. Option 2, sweep his lead ankle, taking out his knee before he could react. Option 3, let him believe his threats were working just long enough to trap him completely. I kept my hands resting gently over Maya's fingers, keeping my posture entirely passive. "Marcus," I said quietly, keeping my tone perfectly smooth. "Look at my face. Do I look scared to you?" Marcus blinked, thrown off by my absolute calm. Bullies thrive on fear, and when you don't give it to them, their brain glitches. He shoved himself off the table, trying to regain his composure by pacing back and forth across the kitchen. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he sneered. "You think you can just sit there and ignore me? By Friday, my lawyer is filing for full administration of this property, and if you step foot on this lawn, I'll carry out every single word I just said." What Marcus didn't know was that my kitchen wasn't just a dining area. It was a secure zone. 3 days earlier, after he'd made his first vague threat over the phone, I'd installed 2 high-definition pinhole cameras with directional audio, one hidden inside the smoke detector directly above the table, and another tucked into the bookshelf behind him. Every single word out of his mouth, the explicit threats of physical violence, the demands for the house, the attempt to traumatize my daughter, was being captured in crystal clear, unedited 4K video and recorded straight to a secure cloud server. In the military, we called this setting the kill box. You don't engage the enemy when they're expecting a fight. You let them walk deeper into the open until they have zero room to maneuver. I slowly stood up, placing myself squarely between Marcus and my daughter. I let a slight tremble enter my chin, feigning hesitation just enough to feed his inflated ego. "If I sign," I whispered, making my voice sound small and broken, "will you leave us alone?" Marcus smiled, a big, triumphant grin. "Now you're speaking my language," he said. By Friday morning, Marcus felt invincible. He marched up my driveway dressed in a tailored suit, accompanied by his personal lawyer and 2 burly friends he'd brought along for extra muscle. He expected to walk into my living room, hand me a pen, and watch a terrified, broken widow surrender her home. He shoved open the front door without knocking, a smug grin plastered across his face. "Time's up, Sarah," he called out, his voice echoing through the hallway. "Let's get this over with." He stepped into the living room and froze. Sitting on my couch wasn't a weeping woman. I was dressed in a crisp, sharp, dark suit, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers and my legal counsel, David, a former military judge advocate general who specialized in high-level criminal extortion. On the coffee table in front of us sat a sleek silver laptop, its screen facing the doorway. Marcus's lawyer stopped dead in his tracks, instantly sensing the atmosphere in the room had shifted violently. "What is the meaning of this?" the lawyer demanded, his voice dropping into defensive posturing. "Marcus," I said, my voice completely devoid of emotion. "Before you say another word, I want you to take a look at the screen." David pressed spacebar. The room filled with the crystal-clear audio and 4K footage from Tuesday afternoon. Marcus's face flushed bright red as his own voice blasted through the speakers. "I'll break your leg in half. I swear to God, I'll put you in a wheelchair and your kid gets to watch." Marcus's lawyer turned pale, turning slowly to glare at his client with sheer disbelief. The trap had sprung. The color drained completely from Marcus's face, leaving him looking sickly gray under the living room lights. His lawyer immediately took 2 steps back, putting physical distance between himself and his client. "We are done here," the lawyer muttered under his breath, closing his briefcase with a loud snap. "Marcus, do not say a single word." One of the police officers stepped forward, unclipping a pair of steel handcuffs from his belt. "Marcus Whitfield, you are under arrest for felony extortion, criminal intimidation, and terroristic threats," the officer said coldly. Marcus panicked, his eyes darting frantically around the room like a trapped animal. "Wait! This is a setup! She's lying! She edited that video!" he screamed, his voice cracking as the officer grabbed his wrists and forced them behind his back. "The footage is time-stamped, encrypted, and already secured as evidence," David replied calmly, standing up from the couch. "Furthermore, my client's background in federal intelligence means this evidence meets the highest standards of digital forensics. You're not just facing local charges, Marcus. We're filing for a permanent restraining order and pursuing full civil damages for severe emotional distress caused to a minor." As the officers escorted a trembling Marcus out the front door, his 2 burly friends slipped away down the driveway without saying a word, terrified of being linked to his crimes. Marcus looked back at me one last time, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage, confusion, and profound shock. For the first time in his life, the gym bully realized he had never been the strongest person in the room. He had poked a sleeping giant, and it had cost him everything. 2 months after his arrest, Marcus pled guilty to felony charges to avoid a lengthy trial, receiving 3 years of probation, mandatory anger management, and a permanent legally binding restraining order that prevents him from coming within 500 feet of my daughter or me. Without his physical intimidation tactics, his gym business crumbled, and he was forced to sell his assets just to pay off his legal fees and court-ordered restitution. For Maya and me, the peace returned to our home instantly. She's back to laughing in the backyard, playing on her swings without looking over her shoulder, knowing that her mother will always keep her safe. If there's one lesson my military career and this experience taught me, it's that true strength never needs to shout. The loudest men in the room are almost always the weakest, relying on fear because they lack discipline, character, and real resolve. Quiet confidence, strategic planning, and unwavering love for your family will dismantle a bully every single time. Now, I'm curious about your thoughts. How would you have handled a toxic bully like Marcus if he came into your home? Have you ever had to stand up to someone who thought they could intimidate you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to mention what city or country you're watching from. I love seeing how far our story reaches across the world. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.